Hello, hello, hello. Today is Monday, February 24th, 2025. This is the Erudition Network, and my show is the Adroit Living session on the Erudition Network. Here, I like to talk about mental health as it relates to the whole person. So, we talk about a lot of current events as it relates to our mental health. We also talk about business and some other things. It's an interactive live stream. So, feel free to come in and make comments, ask questions. And remember, you can always binge watch my episodes from previous posts. It streams live on social media and wherever you get your podcast from. Also, I post a lot of stuff on Facebook. So if you've been following me on Facebook, then you might know what I'm going to talk about today. I'm just saying, like, share, subscribe if you feeling it, if you feeling it. But you know how this works. Give us a like. And definitely share this to people who you might not otherwise be able to say these things to. So here we go. Um, the vulnerable community as an organizational commodity is something that is a running thing that I've been noticing a lot of lately, where a lot of people are taking notice that that's what's been happening. When we say DEI, we break it down to represent a lot of the communities that um, we speak about all the time, but we're not breaking it down as it relates to schools and the vulnerable community, meaning students, meaning people with special needs or who need work accommodations. I'm just saying because that affects uh, people on a whole nother level of mental health, because when we see injustices, regardless of where it takes place, when we see these injustices occurring to um, military veterans, when we see it happening to people who are disabled or people who would otherwise need to lean on the government for financial compensations, it takes a whole nother toll on people, and we're seeing a lot more of it taking place today when we say, well, we're getting rid of DEI and we're rolling back that, and we're rolling back a lot of the funding for schools and different other organizations that were providing aid to different states like Georgia, Utah, and things like that. So I want to talk about the vulnerable community, and we're going to get to that part that's everybody's looking at. But I like to try to give bits and pieces that make the clear correlation so we can understand current events just a little bit better without the emotions. So I try not to bring the emotions to the topics. So for school, we have seen school for profit, that's common, intellectual property as commerce, that's common, vulnerable community as commerce, that is also common. The question is, why do we care? The vulnerable community has been a protected community since Hitler's unethical practices with Jews, most noted in the Holocaust. But you're like, why do I care? And that was so long ago. Well, we've seen what happens when predators violate students in brick and mortar schools. Teachers are relabeled as sex offenders, pedophiles, and untrusty liars. We've seen that. We've seen principals and superintendents and heads of schools also be affected by that because they lose their jobs because their leadership is questionable. So they lose their livelihood. We don't make the correlation to your job as being your livelihood as often as we really need to press that, because that impacts your mental health. These same outcomes occur when students are bullied and someone loses their life. When a student disappears, or when a student tolerates undesirable, unresolved injustices for far too long and fatally shoots up the school and campuses. And now, in these modern times, as we watch students information be used to harm them at home via the government self-reporting that these people have done at home. So we're seeing a lot of things happening, and we're starting to make the correlation as to why it matters. Why does it matter what's happening in these schools? Well, who cares? Why? Well, these are the real betas and pilot tests. We've seen some people say, well, they practice these things out in California. They practice these things out in Utah, or places where it's conservative or things like that. But the real matter of the fact is, it's already been beta tested and pilot studies being conducted in public school brick and mortar systems. I'm just saying, students are the intellectual advancements the world has leaned on for centuries. If you don't believe me, look back. Look at Einstein. He was a student who changed the way schools and businesses recognize effective learning, and they learned valuable lessons about falsely reporting students' ability due to favor and dislike. I understand this is not the way you're taught to observe and predict and conclude what you learned from what you observed, but this is what happened, and this is what it is. And because it really contradicts the way that we are taught and conditioned to see these things, it really messes with our mental well-being when we're forced to see it in our face and up front, because now it affects us. Look how much money was potentially lost as a result of those misalignments of reports. Students like the man who knew infinity altered the way the world calculates, which further aided space adventure possibilities by advancing what Einstein previously found with theory of relativity, etc., etc. So we've seen how, like, students accelerate and progress, and how the the diverse communities which the schools touch, have issued out this information to different genres of industry, and how it's improved and advanced us as a whole. Um, and it's also been a financial benefit too. So that's extremely lucrative. You know, we couldn't count to infinity and beyond before. Now, it's the Toy Story going to make fun of it, to infinity and beyond. Yeah, so that was not even a thing back then. Um, Look at students like the poet Horace, who popularized satire in the Western country, meaning here in America. What satire is? Funny ways to digest emotional events and controversy. So right now, it'd probably be, we're already thinking about how we're going to turn these current events into a satire movie. I don't know what you're going to name it, but it's going to be a lot of documentaries. I'm just saying. And somebody's going to turn around and try to make that more digestible, more palatable to people, by making it a bit of fun, making it funny. Um, Even though right now nobody laughing, I'm just saying. These students and many others advanced American schools and shed light on how the world financially benefit and advances as a result of them being students. I don't know if you're tracking the money, but from my count, that's too much money to dispute the positive correlation students contribute to global business practices, especially America's strong business economy. We wouldn't have a strong business economy without these things. America is a major player on the global stage. So who cares? We all care. The world cares. Why care? Because advancements and the money derived from it is impacting everyone, not just Americans. And we're seeing that as we continue to see a lot of people lose their jobs. And on a global economy, people are seeing where that's leading to, all this new leadership, where it's leading to, and how it could lead to another world war. So the question is, how long have we known about predatory behavior inflicted on the vulnerable community of students? Well, there's been a recent uproar about it from civil rights activists like my uncle Fred Shuttlesworth and his non-mythical friend Martin Luther King Jr., who was sort of crucified for the cause about 56 years ago. During their lifetime, they lived the experience and the effects of predatory acts on students' intellectual property and how much people have profited from that. Since the computer era and its digital revolution of the 80s, we've been able to track advancements, the derivative of those advancements, financial benefits of those advancements, who benefits and how. That's only been the recent 45 years. A lot of people think it's been as long as other countries like Russia, Palestine, and Africa, and things like that, but it's not been that long. Now we can ask AI to run the calculations and tell us the reports of anything we want to know. So knowing will not take as long as it once did, and burying the facts takes far more effort. Everything can be tracked. Now it's just easier. So no one can claim they did not know or blame someone else for withholding invaluable analysis, which impacted lucrative business decisions and investment practices, which has been going on for quite some time. And a lot of investors, stakeholders, and such are saying, well, we didn't know. Why didn't they tell us? And now that they know, they're like protesting and boycotting. And that's really, one of the things that I've seen that has improved people's ability to lessen the information asymmetry between them. It also governs how school practices change or improve. So when we're watching these reports, the alignment is absolutely vital to how we're going to move with these schools. And why do we care about schools again? Because those are the places where these beta tests actually exist, and academia and practitioners are, to get together, collaborate, and see how we can make things better and how we can predict the outcome and make things more desirable. So that's why it's important. Previously, such reports were in the hands of individual organizations and academia who had grants and sponsors. And we understand what grants and sponsorship mean. It means qualifications that you have to have, and you have to do a particular thing in order to get those grants, even though the grants are issued and they say, well, there's no sponsorship, so you don't have to abide by particular, rules or whatever. But really, it does, because in order to secure the grant, you have to do X, Y, Z. So yeah, this is still a source of sponsorship. So over time, sponsorship began to influence such reports, which caused vast misalignment of reports and reality, which so the reports were so outside of the reality that it was like, is this the same? Is this the report for this quarter? Is this the report for this fiscal year? Is this the report for, and it was so misaligned that people would just readily throw it out as a lie. But anyway, this misalignment, which was most notable due to the impacts on organizational money, the misalignment of reports cost a significant amount of money. That's why people began to care about it and disregard it as, valuable a resource. That's why we're seeing a lot of people losing jobs now, because there's a grave misalignment to the importance of their job and what's actually happening. So this is just consequences, we'll say. Now the misalignment of reports is costing people's jobs, and people's livelihood is in dire straits, which is causing a national pushback, which has unpredictable number of variables, moving parts, and outcomes. You can't beta test for something like this. Not even AI can run the same analysis and conclude scientific statistical outcomes using the same data every time, because there's too many moving parts and no one can predict the impacts of mental health as a variable due to the large scale of people and diverse situations. Previously, it was unethical to conduct a study at this magnitude, which harmed or possibly harmed the people that are currently being harmed by these practices that we're seeing in business today. It was unethical. So now a whole lot of studies that we couldn't do before, we can do it now. And we can see what's going on, but we don't necessarily have to conduct individualized studies of people and get their personal opinion and say, oh well, we're going to hide the person who this information came from so we could protect them and their identity and their input. Because now people are so outraged, they don't care if you see them on mainstream media. They don't care if you see them um at the council board or wherever these public places are taking place, where they can vocalize their feelings, their emotions, their experience, and tell you how they feel about it and what they don't like about it. It's a totally different time than what it has ever been before when it comes to reporting and knowing the real reports of things. Mental health has been a major player of events like a monkey a monkey wrench in something for so long of a time, especially in the past 30 years. A lot of people were like, well, why are we always talking about mental health so much now? Why are we always talking about mental health so much now? It's always been a monkey wrench in things, but a lot of times it was only affecting a few people. So a lot of people didn't see the financial benefit of elaborating or further venturing down that path to see what's going on with it, how is it doing whatever it's doing, and put some stuff together to make it easier or fix it or anything, because it just wasn't financially feasible for them. Anyway, in current events, we've seen the mental health variable play out in real life. We have tracked the financial impacts, which cost billions in just the matter of months. This is why mental health is so frequently a topic, because now you can't help but see how much money is being lost. In 2022, I wrote a PhD dissertation which was trying to tell people, but we didn't get to it, did we? We only spread the narrative that the people who took it from me wanted to perpetuate. However, I started this podcast trying to get in front of that and inform people. Look, you're trying to ignore something that's going to be a bigger problem. Let's try to address it via adroit living and acknowledging mental health as physical wealth so we can turn things around, try to get ahead of it. But here we are. The American money, the money American business organizations were compensated for introducing diversity into their field was paid to justify and persuade. What? It was paid to justify the request or the government mandate was of including diverse people was not to degrade the inherently white American organizational structure of industry. Then it was also understood that it would persuade the inherently white American organizational hierarchy that they were not losing money by hiring people who they did not originally want to include in their practices in the proposed and expected capacity. So when they were given the money, they wanted the people who they were paying to be included to participate in a particular capacity, because We saw how the industry incorporated women who went to school and learned how to type and take dictation. And so their typing speed had to be a certain way and their dictation ability had to be a certain way. And they started to incorporate women into the industrial workforce. However, it was a glass ceiling and they couldn't go beyond secretarial positions. So they started the DEI, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion type program where women could advance beyond that glass ceiling, where people of diverse needs and ability, knowledge, skills, and ability, and school and education would be able to go into this organization, which originally inherently excluded them. But now organizations should be mandated to return all the money administered for DEI if they rolled it back. The money they pay back should be that the which was the total cost of the profits gained before taxes, which would not have been had if not for DEI and government money to support DEI. The money should then go to all the people who are out of gainful employment opportunities despite their qualifications. So it's a lot of people out here who are without jobs, though they are qualified for the job, and a lot of people are overqualified for the positions that they apply for because they just need a job. You see, when you lie to people, falsely claiming you only hired people because they were diverse culturally, but unqualified in any other significant capacity, you also justify firing them. Then such lies, assimilation, and validation seemingly obligated people to hire someone who is white and unqualified because why not? People have run with that lie for so long that DEI hires are unqualified, sympathetic hires. They ran with that lie for so long, it's currently threatening to lead to World War III at this level because it's reached a political level which spans just one or two or a handful of organizations. Because we wanted to have a businessman in the political seat that is overseeing all those organizations. I'm just saying, Americans can see a pending world war, and we have used social media and mainstream media to inform the world we do not agree with these lies. DEI was more than cultural appropriation. DEI hires were, in most cases, overqualified workers. Why? Because resistance to include diversity in the proposed capacity. So glass ceilings existed. Raising the bar was another thing that they issued to prevent the qualifications of accepting these people as high as new hires. But it only justified people who were not white. The white men, they remained, simple to qualify for a job. So you didn't really have to, go all out and get education and qualifications and certifications and things like that. So they were not in jeopardy of not having the jobs despite their qualifications. But as a result of the resistance to integrate diverse people into white American business practices, DEI became the method and reason DEI people were overqualified for jobs they actually obtained. Organizations loved it. Over oh, excuse me. They loved it. They was like, oh wow, the government gonna pay us and the people overqualified. Who doesn't love that? Because whether they all acknowledge it or not, being overqualified led to profound profits, but the workers were underpaid and not acknowledged. But that didn't stop them from benefiting from having overqualified workers who are, seem to be using this DEI as a stepping stone to come into the organization. So we're just going to take advantage of them and use them as much as we can. Yet people of diversity accepted those jobs, etc., the stipulations and everything that came with it, because they have a lifestyle, and the innate drive to utilize their skills, their knowledge, skills, and ability was going away. So they was like, all right, I'll just go ahead and do this, and it'll get better. It'll get better. Anyway, I don't think people telling themselves that now. I'm just saying. However, they knew the underlying value would lead to their eventual downsizing before they could rightfully be retired. But not before they made the organization's millions. Track it. It's digitally trackable now. So go ahead and track that information. But yeah, a lot of people were they knew that they would be downsized or fired or let go or terminated or whatever phrase you want to put on it, but they still wanted to get their knowledge, skills, and ability out there, and maybe even use it as a stepping stone to move and advance beyond where they were and to get to where they really wanted to be. But it's one of those things. What'd you say? They don't consider St. Patrick's Day DEI though. Just don't want Black History Month. You know, I don't know if you're making the correlation correctly. A lot of times it's on the resistance stems from things that people don't want. And it's oftentimes strongly correlated to anything that advances the African American community or people that look like them. So that would really rule out the St. Patrick's Day thing right there, wouldn't it? But anyway, when you claim to forget the past while justifying past injustices toward others, you are going to always end up crying, why me? What could I have done to deserve this? Hey, enemy, please help me. Have mercy, which I may never show you. Oh, that's what you were saying? That's what you were saying? Yeah, and it's pretty sad, Um, it's pretty sad that we can't get over that, and that's really affecting people's money in a profound and significant way. But it didn't matter until about a lot of other people began to, you know, say something about it. But these same people who are now saying something about it because it's affecting them, and they were the ones who now they coming to realize you were lying to us. You weren't lying to the people who innately knew that you were excluding them because the color of their skin and not by their merit, not because their individual knowledge, skills, and ability. You were doing that because they're Black. And now it's like, because you allowed that lie to be told, it kind of pushed a lot of white people out of place, because when the Black people had that excuse that, oh well, you don't qualify because you're not educated, you don't have a this degree or that certification and this certification, so they began to raise the bar, and the Black people started to say, okay, then I'll go out and get that. Okay, well, then I'll do that. Okay, then I'll do this. And it started to push a lot of white people out of the running because they weren't going out there and getting those certifications and degrees and knowledge, skills, and ability. They weren't acquiring that because they didn't have to, or they felt like they didn't have to. So it wasn't justified in them being hired, even though they would get hired anyway. So then you had people who were not qualified for the position, but they were white, and they were retaining the jobs, while people who were Black or brown or whatever were losing their jobs, but they were the ones carrying the whole organization. So it made them feel some type of way, like, oh, I better get another job. And that's when we saw a really high increase of voluntary turnover, and there was a lot of attrition studies that were being conducted in organizations and in academia and things like that. It's truly mentally emotionally disturbed, sis. I don't know uh what's YT folks. Oh, I don't know what you said. YT folks is truly mentally emotionally disturbed, sis. Uh all the white tea women you speaking about now. Well, I'm going to do a whole women's month after this, and I'm going to talk to all the women. Oh, you're saying white? I don't know why you didn't just say white. Okay, is that something that would be like, I don't know, reason for being dismissed or something? Demonetized or something? I don't know. I'm new to this. But I'm true to this. I don't do the free thing often, but I've started doing it now, so I can help reach people where they are and give them the mental health. Oh, okay. Yeah, because I'll get flagged. Okay. I appreciate you. Yeah, please speak your mind. Say it the way you got to say it. I'll cover you up. But yeah, I didn't know that that's what you meant. That's why I had to ask. So I appreciate you clarifying. Um, but a lot of people didn't understand how they got to the place that they are right now, and I have seen a lot of videos, and I'm gonna address that on Women's History Month. I'm gonna address how these videos and compilations have been coming out about just what you're saying there, about how some women are asking other women to help them because they did not know, they didn't see it coming, and they follow through wasn't strong enough. But a lot of times when people are asking for this help, those same people come up short on the follow through when they feel they have enough for themselves to get by. But they never consider, what if mercy and help for you were not in the hands and ability of your past enemies or victims? Vengeance never comes from those victims. Their prayers avenge them. Meanwhile, despite logic known to man, victims help those who victimize them. Track it. So that's why people can feel like, oh, yeah, I can ask you to help me because I know you will help me. You'll give in. Meanwhile, we need to stop justifying the people who are elected to step in and help. We need to stop justifying their absent assistance, especially with statements like, give them enough wrongdoings before we do anything to help resolve things. So it's indisputable why we reacted to help. I'm going to come back to that reacted part. People will before you help, you see a lot of people say, well, I'm gonna give them enough rope. But before you help, meanwhile, they've calculated you would do that, so they've removed your ability to do so as part of the many wrongs that they knew they'd get away with, because you'll just sit back and wait. People will remember your deliberate wait and withholding desired assistance. This is how we see mental health problems rise via loopholes. Let's track how loopholes have caused a significant increase in mental health problems. Oh, wait a minute. We're still counting because it's ongoing and it's a prevalent concern. Meanwhile, in the span of a few weeks, we've counted billions of losses and counting because we're waiting. We're reacting despite having been previously told we're looking weak now as a result, not just to other countries, but to other Americans. The signal these events pose on a global scale previously led to world wars. These actions posit the same outcome. Stop waiting. And I had to clarify because I didn't want to assume what the viewer was saying. So I didn't want to assume, but anyway, I was happy that clarification came. I want, if you have any questions, go ahead and post it in there. Let's talk about it. It's a free interactive platform. I have a few degrees, but we see how people feel about degrees. when it's held by an African American woman. However, you don't need a few degrees to qualify and quantify how much you know, or to validate how much you know. It's really just a stepping stone to show others before they get a chance to meet you, to understand your potential. So yes, degrees help others track your potential. Um, a lot of times we're seeing that these shows that I'm doing have too much of an impact. So to really elaborate too far into it. For example, we saw the resistance, and we're trying to make the correlation as to how the resistance in the workforce had any correlation to do with what's happening in the schools. We saw what was happening in these schools, and we didn't really fully make the correlation that this this is our future. This is something that's being inflicted on those people and us as well, by directly affecting us and indirectly affecting us, because we didn't see how, if you have these undesirable behaviors happening in schools and you seeing the outcome that it's causing the students, the teachers, and all the people involved, you didn't make the correlation that this is a business organization. This is how this business practice is running. And because this is the way the business practice is running, this is how businessmen see what they need to do and how they need to behave. And oh well, we can get away with it, or oh well, we know what we can do and how much money it'll make. But people are obligated to go to school in order to meet the requirements for um, getting jobs. But now people are like, well, if I can be fired before I retire, what's really the purpose in me going to get this job and work this job for 19.5 years and then be told, oh, you've been downsized. We no longer require your position, or just don't give you any reason at all and just escort you out of the building and tell you don't come back, send you pink slips via text or email or snail mail. And now we're seeing it on a bigger scale. This was already happening. This was happening long before it became this obvious. Um, it was written out in the 2025 prospectus, and MSNBC is now grabbing the book, the 2025 prospectus book, and trying to tell people and read it to people and explain it to people. But that's something that you should have done long before now, so that people would have made informed decisions before it was too late. Now it's like the decision has been made. These are the things that we're going to have to endure. And instead of you telling us, I told you so, it should be more of a, what are we going to do now? This is what we're going to do now. Instead of, pointing out things you should have pointed out before to make yourself relevant. I'm just saying, if the information was not helpful before the decisions were made and the mental health damage transpired, what makes you think saying I told you so now is going to be helpful? It's not helpful. It's only causing more problems. And because you're shutting down like the Board of Education and things like that, and you're firing a lot of people who that was their livelihood. That's all they had left. That's the only stream they had. That's a lot of people's last straw. And unfortunately, we've seen a man, a white male, go into in front of these people and hold them at gunpoint because he's upset that his wife, who was a teacher, is now unemployed. She was fired, and it was for no ethical reason at all. We're seeing that across the board. When you have these unethical injustices, you not only justify pushback, you've justified random illogical behavior. which will later then be classified as mental health breaks. A lot of people are not making the correlation, but we're seeing it more and more often now because you have severely disrupted the mental health of so many people. It is too hard to fight not broadcasting it, not allowing people to understand that this is a serious problem. It's costing billions and trillions of dollars because those are lives that's lost now. Those are people who critical thinking skills are gone to waste, and we can't recover and recoup because it's not just the targeted group, it's beyond a targeted group. That's why I don't fear being flagged for saying white people, brown people, black people, or anything. These are facts. These are facts which studies have shown and which we are seeing right in front of our face every day. So it's not to say fear of being censored, okay? It's fear of mental health breaks. That's what we really need to be worried about right now. We need to be afraid of mental health breaks. We need to stop acting like these people were mentally stable from before 2025 election. We need to stop acting like people weren't already on their last leg because they were enduring a pandemic, and it's an ongoing pandemic, mind you. They were already enduring hardships with the school systems where they didn't know who would survive every moment that they were out there. So we were already doing that. We were already dealing with, a lot of the unspoken problems with the Black community, African American community, Latino, and all the diversity and the lack of unity within these individual organizations and groups and communities. We were already dealing with that being in your face type of problem, which was causing a great deal of mental health breaks. So it's not to say that we didn't know that given just a little bit more push, such as a lot of mass firing, a lot of high volumes of turnover rates that were forced, we're acting like we don't know what we were going to experience. A lot of people who were in the military and now I think it was MSNBC. They were doing, it was a panel and they were talking about how most military people are now pushed out so that it's just white males. We had that problem before. It didn't work out so well. During World War II, a lot of people, they were white and they were out there in the military and they were trying to fly those planes. The pilots who had given a lot of study and a lot of years of work and effort into becoming a military pilot, they were dying. They were dying because they couldn't handle the pressure of flying the plane in a masterful way and living after the fact. It was a war. It was stress. It was a lot of obstacles and challenges, and they still had to fly and survive, and it wasn't happening. So, industrial organizational psychologists, such as myself, were asked to do evaluations, see who's actually capable, whose knowledge, skills, and ability are actually in full alignment with the task so that we can win this war. And when such industrial organizational psychologists got involved, they started to see a higher success rate in the pilots piloting the planes and surviving and having more desirable outcomes, which led to winning the war. But those people were overqualified for the positions. So it kind of set a pattern that we don't talk about. We don't talk about the pattern that overqualification really kind of forces progression and advancement in ways that we didn't previously predict, because you cannot predict it. You cannot predict how people who are overqualified for a job will advance a thing, because it had never been before. Everybody who was already in white American business organizations and the structure, it wasn't designed for people to be overqualified for the job. It was only designed for functionality. And even if that. So when you started to incorporate people who were overqualified for the job, and you knew they were overqualified because they can outthink the current CEO, EEOCs, and the presidents of the communities that they were joining, and advance them. So when you had that and when you saw that, it was like, wow, we didn't predict that this would be our profits and gains. We didn't predict that we could benefit this much when we were sitting there being mandated by the government to include these people. They didn't think that. What'd you say? Don't underestimate how much they dislike our people. Full stop. You hit hard. You hit hard. But I saw this young lady, Knickknack 23, NIKNAK 23, all one word. You got to follow that sister. She hits hard. She is extremely intelligent. She is fed up. Um, and she can definitely tell you, and she won't pull no punches. I try to be as nice as possible, because a lot of times we've seen that the message isn't getting clear to people because their resistance to embrace anything that's challenging, embrace anything that's too harsh to accept, too heartbreaking um to address. So we have things like satire. We have things like psychologists going and saying, well, come talk to me about it behind closed doors and we'll talk through it. We don't need to talk behind closed doors any longer. We need to be out in the forefronts telling people, look, let's talk about it. Even if you don't like it, even if you feel hurt by it, whatever your emotions are, let's talk about it. Let's discuss it, because we don't want all that bottled in and bottled up. And then, just like if you put Coca-Cola and then you put those acid drops up in there and then you shake it, and you know what's going to happen. That's exactly what we've seen happening in the real world when we keep having these people to endure these hardships and as unresolved issues, and just keep on going. Oh, it's unresolved, but keep on going. Oh, don't worry about it, just keep on going. And it's like, wait a minute, we haven't addressed any of this, and I keep going. For example, a lot of people were saying, well, this happened to the African American people. So they went out there and they just got another job. Honey, baby, if it was like that right now, it would be a different story. But they literally got rid of those jobs. Those jobs no longer exist. So it is not the same as it was before those jobs exist. So now we have to create jobs. And it's like, create a job in an environment where people don't have the income to trade in order to give you or pay you for your goods and services. So it is, again, it's the same but different. Different in the manner of fact that we've been there, we've done that, we know what it is. So what they do is they go and they get ahead of you, just like they knew that a lot of the political representatives would wait to see what happens after they had to face their constituents regarding all of these layoffs, these mass downsizings. And they said, well, we already know what your next play is. And because we know what your next play is, we're going to get ahead of you and remove your ability to do anything about what we've done. So it's the same, but different all at the same time. It's complicated. And because it's so complicated, you're making unpredictable outcomes manifest. And the problem with that is it's causing lives, not just money. It's causing unpredictable people to lose their lives. And while you have bodyguards available, you have security, you have all these people around you that's supposed to take, trade their life for yours or whatever, jump in front of bullets or whatever for you. But let me tell you something. That doesn't always work out the way you want it to or the way you thought it would or should. So the problem with that is you're basing your protection on things that will likely fail you. Because even if you're wearing a bulletproof vest and you're going out here with a chainsaw and you're holding it up in the air and you're letting it be understood that you're making a mockery of things and you think everything is funny because it doesn't affect you personally and it doesn't affect your wealth or your ability to have generational wealth, it still does impact the fact that, well, some, even if you were to, be okay after, being hurt, it's still these people that you're mass firing, you're mass downsizing, who have to then turn around and say, I forgive the fact that my grandmother can't be in the home anymore, who was providing the proper care for her, or my father or grandfather or whomever it is that's in need of elderly care. They can't get it anymore, and you're the cause of it. I have to see that a lot of these people who are being downsized, they're in the hospitals, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're people that's going to have to say, well, I forgive you enough in order to do my job for you, to save you, even though you wouldn't extend me that same kindness, or my family, or anybody I know or work with and appreciate and need their help. You haven't given them that ability. So they have to look at you when you're standing in the balance between life, death, or losing all of your wealth because you're in a courtroom or something. They have to overlook every reason not to help you in order to help you because they're doing their job. I don't know if I can see that happening, because history shows that when African Americans were in that same position and the court system was set up with just all white American males, they didn't have lawyers who would fend for them because they were they were afraid of not fitting in. They were afraid of, that Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, and not having that. They didn't consider the impact that it would have to the African American people and community, and forget how innocent or guilty they were. It was the matter of fact that they had to do their job, and they decided they weren't going to do their job because, well, they just weren't going to do their job because the person was African American. So when we were talking about African Americans, when we were talking about for Americans, we did not include African Americans. And a lot of people realized that, but they didn't care, because they didn't know that they justified the same wrongs being done to them. But now that they see it, they're like, well, man, we got to ask them, how did they survive? Well, they say they just got another job, or they just made themselves a job opportunity. But a lot of times, because we are seeing that there's no way around it now, because you kind of got ahead of all of that by beta tested yourself out of options, because you said, well, they went to get another job. Okay, we're going to take the jobs completely away. Now you're not going to get another job. Oh, you're going to generate your own job. Good luck with that, because we're going to get ahead of you, and we're going to create the exact job that you would have created, the podcast that you would have created. We're going to go and take all of that, and we're going to make a mockery of it and have it ourselves, and we're going to promote that, and we're going to make sure that it's such a narrow way that you cannot prosper, and see what happens. That's a terrible place to be in. And that's where we are right now. And that's why we see people like that man who lost his life because his wife was a teacher and now she was fired. We're seeing people act out knowing they're not going to live another day. So why not do whatever I need to do because I'm angry and because I'm not going to live another day anyway because I don't have no money. I don't have a job. I don't have a hope for having a job. I don't have anything that I used to have and now I'm spoiled to and I expect because you lied to me and I look like you, but you lied to me anyway and said it's only the people that don't look like us. But then turned around and you did it to people who look like you. And those very people are saying, you're not going to lie to me and get away with it. A lot of those people are saying, well, yeah, you want us to ask the African American community, how did they overcome? But you knew how they overcame and you blocked those abilities from ever happening again. So imagine that. Imagine that they knew if they burnt the bridge down, you would swim across. So they put these floating buoyant fences in the water. So now when you try to cross without the bridge that's been burned, you get to this floating fence and you drown because they knew that that's the way you would go because the bridge was no longer there. Didn't we have that situation happen before? I think we kind of did. Didn't end well. It's unethical. But people didn't care. People didn't care because it didn't directly impact them. And then when it started to impact them, their mental health was disrupted because they convinced themselves or they allowed themselves to be convinced that it wouldn't be them. It wouldn't be you because you look like them. It wouldn't be you because you live there. It wouldn't be you because it's not your fault. It wouldn't be you because, well, whatever excuse they give you. And then they turn around and hide their hand when you completely snap. You completely snap and they act like they didn't know. They didn't see it coming. They didn't know that that would happen. They knew. They knew. And then you see these politicians sit back who are hired to do these jobs and they sit there and allow these things to transpire without any pushback, without conducting their jobs. And they say, well, it's okay because I wasn't going to run for re-election anyway. We saw what happens with that too. We saw what happens with that too. Doesn't end well. Doesn't end well at all. We still got to live through it though. So what are we going to do? Well, eventually, those who are left will unite despite their differences, despite their diversity, despite their challenges. They will unite. And then everything will be okay. And then things will start to prosper and be prosperous once again. But before then, it's going to get really messy. Going to really weed people out more than the pandemic we just entered into and is still ongoing. We got too many balls up in the air. Too many balls in the air and a lot of people distracted by pointing fingers, distracted by maybe even a little laughing because now it's you and not just us. Maybe just not laughing, but just enjoying the irony just a bit because that's helping with their mental health. But it's not okay. It's really not. I see the memes, I see the videos, I see what everybody's posting and sharing, and I really enjoy hearing all the individual testimonies and the ask, the request, and people. Yeah, I'm praying for y'all. I'm praying for all of us. But we all need to understand the only way that this thing gets better is we have to stop acting like we don't remember the past. It wasn't that long ago. 56 years, 45 years, 56 years since MLK Jr., 45 years since the popularization of the computers and digital tracking ability for whoever goes to go look. And 30 years since we've really been harping on this whole mental health situation and awareness. And most recently, all of that has come together to show us, yep, we need to unite as an American country before somebody thinks we don't have the mental wherewithal or ability, let alone the skills. And they come and do things that we didn't want to do, which forces us all to unite. Because that happened too with each world war and civil war. So we would really like to avoid repeating the past, because there's some things that if we were to repeat, it's not going to turn out the way you thought it would. But people are ready and they're braced up. But a lot of times we're not ready for the things we're seeing. And I'm so heartbroken about the people who feel so hopeless that they feel like they can take a weapon and threaten lives and loot and allow their own life to be taken. It's very sad. It's heartbreaking. So hopefully we will hurry up and unite. But that's been my show for today. We don't protect the vulnerable community the way we should. And we need to. And it's not just the people that we talk about all the time. It's become everybody's problem, because mental health is physical wealth. See you next episode. Mental health is physical wealth.